We must declare our virtual selves immune to your sovereignty even as we continue to consent to your rule over our bodies. We will spread ourselves across the planet so that no one can arrest our thoughts. We will create a civilization of the mind in cyberspace. May it be more humane and fair than the world your governments have made. Davos, Switzerland, February 8th, 1996. When people say democracy, I think sometimes I don't know if they know what they mean. Democracy literally means that everybody gets to vote. And I'm not sure that's how the internet's ever going to work. But sometimes when people say democracy, they mean freedom of expression for everybody. And that's what I mean. That's what I was writing about in that document, was that cyberspace actually was a social context, and that even though it depended on the physical world and was intimately bound with it, it had the same relation to the physical world as the mind has to the body, right? They are very, very interconnected, but they are not the same. And I felt that cyberspace needed to declare itself as being different and not subject easily to a great many of the laws and methods of the physical world, and efforts to try to make it like the physical world we're going to impede its eventual ability to become the collective organism of thought that I believed was arising in it. I wish I hadn't written it so casually. I didn't think it was going to become some canonical document, and I was at a dance at the end of the World Economic Forum, and I was trying to make time with a bunch of graduate students from the University of Geneva, and I was sort of jotting this off. And I certainly wouldn't have imitated the style of Thomas Jefferson if I'd known that it was going to be some lasting document. And I would have tried to make it clear that there was a physical dimension to the internet, and it wasn't sublimely yet detached, as that document would say. But it's become popular to haul that thing out and say, "See, look at how wrong he was. Look at the Chinese. Look at how the NSA's spying on everything. Look at how our freedoms have all been taken away." And I still would submit that the governments of the physical world, for all of their efforts, have not managed to impose sovereignty over cyberspace, which was my main point. They're trying like hell, but it's not working. It's not. So I'll stand by it. I had been part of a Harper's Magazine forum which was very prescient. I don't know what caused those guys to be smart enough to have this forum, but it was on a bulletin board computer, BBS, called The Well, which was kind of a salon, and a lot of literary people there, thoughtful people. And they convened a group of us to talk about forbidden knowledge and security and privacy and secrecy and all of the things that are now recognized by everybody to be important. And so in 1989, they asked me to join these other folks on this conference, and I did. And in the course of it, I met some teenage hackers. And I made some flip remark about how if you took away their modems and gave them skateboards, it wouldn't make much difference. They seemed like little thugs, skateboard types. And they responded by downloading my whole credit record into the conference and making it clear to me that if I went on in that vein, they would change my credit for good. Well, that's scary. You don't want to have a bad credit rating in the United States that you can't fix. So I said, well, it occurs to me that we have exceeded the bandwidth of this medium, and I would appreciate it if you'd give me a call, and I won't insult you by giving you my number, which I knew would assure an immediate call, and it did, and about 6 or 7 of them called me from phone booths around the New York area simultaneously. So I had this conference call with these kids, and they really were kids. Their voices hadn't even changed yet. And I thought, oh, I know how this is. I mean, these people aren't a threat. They're all right. I could really identify with them. And then, we had a bond, and we started talking a lot. And then the Secret Service starts coming in into these kids' houses. One of them came home, and his sister had been held at gunpoint for hours while the Secret Service was carrying out everything that could be construed as electronic in the house, including a clock radio and his Metallica tapes. And they didn't know what they were doing, clearly, but I thought, holy shit, maybe these kids are more dangerous than I thought, or the Secret Service is going to come on gangbusters like this. And they really were heavy. And I found out that this wasn't the only case. There was a case in Austin, Texas, of a guy that had a role-playing game company that was putting out a game called Cypherpunk. No, it was Cyberpunk. And the Secret Service came in and completely destroyed his business by taking all of his computers and not returning them because they said they thought that Cypherpunk might be a handbook for computer crime. There was nothing in it to indicate that. And there were other cases as well. And I was learning about these cases through this network of folks that I'd come to be close to, these kids. And then I had a visit from the FBI myself. And there was this fellow, field agent Richard Baxter from the Rock Springs field office, and he comes to visit me. And I knew him. I'd met him before, and we were kind of friends. He was a good guy on livestock theft. And he's very nervous on the phone. He says he can't talk to me about what he needs to talk to me about over the phone. This has to be in person. And this makes me very nervous. Like, what's this? Because, I write songs for a famous drug-oriented band. I think, oh, damn. And he comes up and he's very nervous, and it takes him about 2 hours to describe what it is that he's investigating, because he doesn't understand it very well. And it takes me a long time to explain it to him, sufficiently so that I can start convincing him that I'm not really a good suspect. But what had happened was somebody had taken some of the source code from the Apple ROM chip and was spreading it around the internet. Well, it actually wasn't using the internet. They were sending out floppy disks with Apple's secret source code and calling themselves the New Prometheus League, and saying that if Apple didn't open up their code, that they would just send the entire ROM chip around. And this guy thought that meant that they would immediately be able to clone Macintoshes in Taiwan, and it would be the death of Apple. And just about everything he knew was wrong. And he had the craziest, starting with he called them the New Prosthesis League, and you couldn't get him not to. And he went away, and then I realized that all the things that had been happening with my little friends in the Legion of Doom and whatnot were being done by other federal agents just like this guy, who didn't know what they were doing, didn't know whether the Constitution was present or not, were well-armed, nervous, and dangerous. And we started to take the government to court. And at first it was just us, and we didn't want an organization. But it wasn't long before we realized that this was going to go on for a long time. All this struggle between the virtual and the physical was going to go on the rest of our lives. And we needed an organization that could be there and continually adapt to the frontier conditions that this would have. Because it would be the same war, but it would be on new territory all the time, because technology would make new territory.